what is SAP's product vision, and how are they recommending customers are going about upgrading to the new version of SAP, which is essentially S/4HANA. So the idea is that, you know, SAP is really positioning S/4HANA as being the digital core of the modern enterprise, right? So it's all based on having this core in the middle where you are going to have all of the glue that binds it all together, which is namely primarily your master data and your accounting data and other very, very critical data. That's what's going to sit in that central S/4HANA system. And then you're going to complement that with additional systems around the edges, and that's where a lot of your innovation will happen, right? So some of you might, for example, be using Salesforce for CRM. You might be using SuccessFactors for HR and other things, but what binds it all together is really that S/4HANA system in the middle. Now, that also means that because this is the glue that binds it all together, it becomes really, really important that all of the data in that digital core is going to be right. You want correct data in there, you want fast data in there, because not only is it about having that central store of your core data, increasingly companies are moving to a real-time environment. That's part of the S/4HANA promise, is that all of that data is going to sit in a real-time database, so you get faster access to your data. So not only do you need to get the data right, you really need to get it right the first time when you get your data into the system.
So I wanted to start off at ECC because, you know, that's the source and S/4HANA will be the target. So I wanted to just show one of the customers, and as Christian mentioned, BP is now going to be customers, vendors, and a whole lot of other types of roles in your business, and I wanted to concentrate on customers. So just wanted to give you just a quick glance at what we're moving from, and then we'll get into the demonstration. So this is just one example of one of the customers that I wanted to move. Let me go ahead and close that up. And we'll hop over here to our Excel file. So as Christian was talking about this, you know, this is geared toward business users to be able to use, and thus we're in Excel. And I have already logged in, so we have an add-in here. So here's our Winshuttle ribbon. And I have a number of what we call scripts or SAP interactions. Whenever you hear script, think of an SAP interaction. And so the first thing that I want to do is go find the data that I want to extract out of ECC. So I'll choose that, and we have a query tool which extracts out of the back end. And I'll go ahead and give it a range so we're not sitting here loading thousands, although we could. So you can do things like ranges, you can use wildcards, you can search for exact matches, and you can have a whole lot of search criteria. Here, this is going to pull back a handful or two of customers. And what it's doing, it will populate this Excel sheet, and I have this chain. So I have a query for the basic customer data, and I have another one for company and another one for sales. So you'll see here's the pop-up for company, and it will populate this. Whoops. Hang on, let's see what happened. It's a live demo. Okay, nothing returned from this one. Let me try it one more time. Oh, it's because I'm pointing to the wrong system. Beg your pardon. We're going to maintain SAP security, so I was pointing to the S/4HANA system. They don't exist there yet. I'm going to point to my ECC system first. And here we go again. We'll give the range again. Again, I could enter in different search criteria. And now we'll start pulling data out of our ECC system. So here we go. It's pulling it all out. And you'll see it's pulling it out as is. And then I've got some transformations built into the query. So for example, you might want all of your address information in uppercase. I'm also showing some columns here where this is what it was in ECC and this is what it might be in S/4HANA. So you may or may not have the same organizational data as you migrate. So now we've extracted the company data. We'll now extract the sales data, and it's going to do the same thing. And once that's done, we'll just take a quick peek at all of it, and we'll see how some of the transforms were done. And we finished. So you notice this is what I pulled out of ECC. I've got sales org 1000, and this is actually built into the query, and it's going to look up on one of my sheets, what does it swap to? And if it doesn't find it, it'll say, hey, it's not found. So let's hop over here to the swap. So I have a number of swap tables here. So if it's company code 1000 in ECC, this is what it will be in S4HANA. I did similar things for payment terms, reconciliation accounts, taxes, sales orgs, and so forth. And you can do this in different ways. This is one way that you can do it. And if I hop through here, I can see all of the data that was extracted. Take a look here. Now here's one where I didn't have a swap, so it looked for it and it's not found. So I could either update the tables here, or I can just simply type in a value. So I'll just go ahead and type one in. We'll hop back here to the general data. So now that I have that, let me make sure I log off so I point to the right system. Now what I want to do is try to post that to ECC. And what I want to do is just put in a couple of errors on purpose, just so you can see what it looks like for error handling. So I'm swapping over to the script that will actually upload the business partner, and I broke this up into pieces. So I'm going to upload first the general data, and then the company data, then the sales data. And we have the option here to do what's called a validate. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. I'm going to choose my ECC system. Or I'm sorry, my S4HANA system. And what it will do is basically fill the screen and hit enter. And that's when I first learned SAP, they just said, Sigrid, fill the screen and hit enter and wait till all the messages go away. So this is going to give a success if there are no errors. And if there are errors, they'll come back here. And so you'll see here, I'm missing data in a column. So we'll hop over here to L11. You'll see that that's missing. And in fact, we have just designated by an asterisk, but you could use color coding. These fields are actually required, so we won't even hit SAP until this information is filled in. So I'll go ahead and fill that in, and we have another one missing here, so maybe I forgot that. So now what we can do is revalidate, but only the ones that errored out. So now it's going to again fill in those screens for the ones that had error messages and give back a message. So now instead of catching the fact that a required field is missing and not even hitting SAP, this is an SAP message that comes back. So it's telling me that that language is not correct. So I can go fill it in, and I'll go ahead and correct this one because this one's required. So if it's empty, then it's going to stop it from even hitting SAP. So we'll do one more quick revalidate. And again, you'll see all these error messages are in line with the data and are not in a separate place where you have to match back row numbers to error logs. They're all in one place to make for easy error identification and handling. And since we're trying to load this through the SAP application layer, all of those business rules that you built into your S4HANA system will be applied and give you back messages. So we'll see here that everything is now a success. I'm going to swap over now to a chained version of this. So what it's going to do is it's going to load the customer or the BP general data, then it's going to load the company data and the sales data. So when I click run, all three of them will run one after the other. So I've already logged into S4HANA, so we'll see that it's now running these, and we'll start getting messages here in the column A, which is where I designated to put them. And if I scroll over here to this side, I've also exposed what are called the extended logs. So any informational messages or SAP messages that go on through the transaction will come here. And this is also a good thing to do if you end up with, sometimes you'll get cryptic error messages from SAP, and the extended logs typically have additional information. So while I was talking, we had just loaded the general data. Now what we're doing is we're loading twice as many. So we loaded the general data, which is not specific to a sales area or company. And now we're loading each customer in with the various company data. So we're filling in the particular S4HANA derived company codes, the reconciliation accounts, and the payment terms. And it will run through this. And again, you'll get the same kind of messages. If there were any error messages, you'll get those as well. So we're trucking along, and in a little while we'll also then do the sales area data. And one of the things that I've noticed with BP, although it's a little challenging and what I would consider a hefty T code, there's a lot of things going on in it. When you create a creation script, 9 times out of 10 it will also work for updates. So that's the one good part of BP that I found so far, is that if you design it correctly, it will work for both. So you see here we're trucking along, loading all of these customers again with the company data. And then once this one is done, because we've chained these together, it will then move on to the sales area data. And when that's finished, we'll hop into S4HANA and take a look at what we have. Now I'm specifying the customer number, or BP number in this case. You can also set it up to use generated numbers. And there's a number of configurations in there to either allow you to enter it or go ahead and generate it, just like an ECC. So we finished company, and now we're going to hop over to the sales area data, which has quite a number of additional fields, and load those up. And again, we'll get the error message, or any messages that we have here in column A, and we also have the extended messages here in column Y. And that'll be trucking along. So while that's happening, let me go ahead and hop into S4HANA, and we'll take a look at the first one. So we'll go into BP, we'll open it up, and you'll see what we created. So here's our address data, and remember I use the transformations to make everything in uppercase. It's an optional thing to do. And as we scroll down, I've got phone, that language, email. Again, I can fill in any field that's here on an SAP screen could have been included in this, as well as any of the different tabs. So we'll hop over here to, let me go ahead into read only, and we'll hop over into the company one. So we'll go to the company code data, and I have a number of companies, so you can either type it in here or come over here and choose one and click adopt. And so you'll see the reconciliation account and the payment terms. And if I swap to the other one, we'll adopt that one, and you'll see a slightly different reconciliation account and payment terms. So hopefully you get the idea. We just pulled all that data out of ECC. We did some transforms in the query, so that was part of the query. It applied it as the data was extracted. You can do other manipulation quite easily in Excel, and then we turned around and posted this here into S4HANA. So that's the example. And so this has gone ahead and finished. So you'll see all of the sales areas have finished. So we've just loaded up all of these business partners, which were customers. And I chose customer because it tends to be a bit more complex than vendor, although some people may think otherwise. So that's from the cooking show perspective, that's the end product. So I'd like to now swap over into how did she do this mode. So let me open up. I'll open up the query part of it. I don't know if we showed this previously. So this is our tool called Winshuttle Studio, and you'll see in a minute it can build queries or extracts out of SAP. It can also leverage transactions or BAPIs and function modules to read or write data to and from SAP. So in this case, we're searching against the tables. We can use logical databases and info sets, and you simply either pull in the table name or search for it. You can search on it based on the description or name, as well as on fields. And then you basically add them. It will automatically join the tables based on key columns, so you can manually join them. And then I'll go ahead and show this in a slightly different mode. So what we can do here, if we click output, that means we're going to pull the data out of SAP and show it. And if we click criteria, that means it's part of the search criteria. And so we can go through here if we're not sure what we want, we can start typing it, and it will pop up just the fields that match your search criteria. So it makes it really easy to find them all. And it gives you the technical name, if you know that, or the description, which is a bit more friendly. And the same thing here with the company code data. So you'll see there's only a couple of fields that I included: reconciliation account and payment terms. And then for the criteria, you decide whether it's between, greater than, less than, equal, in, not in, is null, is blank, is not blank, and so forth. So there's a lot of different search criteria. And you can specify that it's required so that you're not returning everything out of the SAP system. I've got an in operator here, and I could use a whole lot more. And then you simply map them to your Excel sheet. And if I drag this up, you'll see So I'm mapping it to the company sheet and just saying which column it goes to. And then I can test it out. And once I'm done with that, I can publish it. And it basically embeds it into the Excel sheet. So you have a self-contained Excel file that you can give someone to run through these. And then the chaining allows you to run them one after the other. You can specify them in any order. So that's the extraction part. And one of the things I just wanted to show is this is where I put, if you know a few Excel formulas, you too can transform your data as it's being pulled out of SAP. So I'm just looking it up based on data in column H in this spot, and if it's not found, I'll swap it out for this text. So it's really simple. You know, I did uppercase transforms and a couple other things. So I'm not an Excel expert, but a few formulas like this are pretty powerful to be able to format and potentially clean up your data. So that's the extraction part. And now what I want to do is actually build one from scratch and show you how to create one of the business partner roles. Now I wanted to choose one that's not included already in the demonstration so that you can see that as a further example. So I want to create from a recording a transaction script, and I choose my SAP system. I'm going to log in. I have to have access and permission to that SAP system or I can't do this. And I'll type in my T code, and I'm mapping to Excel, and we'll just go ahead and start recording. So in a moment, it's going to open up the SAP system that I selected, and again, if I have permission to that particular T code, it's going to let me walk through it. And so in order to do a good recording, you should understand the behavior of the T code and some data behind it, and that's about it. So I'm going to open up one of the business partners I just created. And you'll notice here you're in read-only mode the first time you do this. That's one of the parts of understanding the behavior. So just for fun, I'm going to close this part up and I swap to edit mode. I only have to do that once, and then we'll come back to that a little bit later. So now I'm in edit mode on my newly created business partner, and I just want to select a role. And right down here is SAP credit. So you don't see it yet, but if I come over here, you'll see there's some additional tabs. And we can go ahead and put in some data. You can also put things in a table, so we'll go ahead and do some values. Okay, and it was rated today. Whoop, well, that was yesterday. That's okay. Now sometimes SAP gives you so many scroll bars you have to scroll around a little bit to get to where you want to go to. Here we have a text line, and we could go into an editor. I'm just going to put in one line, and if you'll notice if I scroll down even further, there's additional tables and fields, but hopefully that'll give you an idea of what's possible. And then I want to come up here to the credit segment data. One other thing about this particular T code that I remember from their behavior is if you start entering information here, you can no longer enter the segment. So you want to always do the segment, then you can start entering data. Again, just knowing a little bit of the behavior of the T code will save you a lot of time. Now I could leave it limit not defined or specify a limit, so I'll go ahead and do that right now. And again, SAP is very generous with its scroll bars, so we'll go ahead and fill in whatever information that I want to. Again, I could fill in additional information here in the table. I can come to all the various tabs, but instead I'll just leave it at that. We'll come back here to the general data, and this behaves a little bit like customer does, so it remembers the last tab you were on. So in order for automation to behave predictably, you need to start in the same place that you started the first time. So I'll just come back here to the first tab on the general data, and I'll click Save. If I did it right, SAP will give me a save message. If I didn't do it right, it's pretty easy that I just ran through this. I could start over or make corrections. So it's trucking along, saving this particular business partner. Again, this is a bit of a heavy lifting T code. So some T codes, here we go. Changes have been saved. I did good. I'm just going to exit. I used to do sales orders and purchase orders. Those are some of what Sigrid considers some of the heavy lifting T-codes. They do a whole lot of checks in the background. So now we've finished the recording. Again, I just needed to know the T-code, the behavior, which fields I wanted to fill in, and some test data. And typically you will do this against a non-production system. And now we've been given a list of all the fields. If there was a description, that's filled in. If not, it'll have it blank. There's a technical name, and it includes as well any kind of what data type it is, and what the length should be, and what values that you used. And so by default, it uses this push pin, which means it's fixed. That won't make it very interesting. So what we'll want to do is map this to Excel so that we can pass values in. And I'm going to take these log fields first and just drag them down to the columns that I want. So I'm just dragging, and when I let go, it says, okay, Sigrid wants the SAP message, which we call the run log, in column A, and any kind of validation message in column B. You can pick your layout. So now I want to go from column C up to business partner, and when I let go, it goes, okay, Sigrid's going to have the business partner number here in column C. For these, I'm going to go ahead and just type in some names because sometimes SAP doesn't provide them. So I'll do grade, and you can put whatever name. You can even change names. Sometimes names tend to get quite lengthy and have odd names. So we'll do a from date, and we'll do to date. This happened to be in a grid, and date when rated. But you'll notice everything else has descriptions. So I'll go ahead and just choose a whole chunk of them, my technical term, and we'll have everything start in column D. Now you notice I'm leaving the actual role type as fixed because this is geared toward credit role. So that one won't be input, it's just going to be fixed. So now we've done that, I'm going to add just a couple of business rules. So what I want is I want business partner to be required, and you'll see I can either click it here, click it on top here on the ribbon, or even click it here on the properties. And this goes beyond what SAP is required. Maybe in your business you need to have specific fields filled in, so you can choose which fields need to be filled in. And that means when we try to run this or validate this, if the field is empty, it won't even hit SAP. It'll stop you and say, wait a minute, you need to fill in the data for this. So it comes in quite handy. We can also do formulas for transforms. We can provide lists of data, so a subset of the data that's actually in your SAP system. So there's a lot of validation that you can build into this. So now on the Run tab, I have everything in the column that I dragged it to, and I like to come in here and do a teeny bit of housekeeping. It tends to be generous with the column width, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink these up. Let me start from here. And then I want to test it for more than one row, so I'll go ahead and grab this one and copy it. And of course I could end up changing the data. So these are some of the business partners that I just created. So we did the recording, we did the mapping, we've added some business rules, and now I'm here on the Run tab. But there's one thing that I forgot, and if you guys could talk to me, hopefully someone would remember. Remember that when I went into the business partner, I had to go into edit mode. And because everything that runs acts like a single session within SAP, I only need to swap into edit mode once. So it would work for this one, but then when it hits this one, we'd hit that edit mode again and we'd become read-only. So there's something that we have to change in our script to say, only do this for the first row. And that's back on the mapping. I've shown you this. It has all the descriptions, the names, the data types, and so forth. What I'm going to do is go to expert mode. And expert mode is where you'll see additional data. It's where you can add conditions, you can add loops, and you can actually edit the script manually if you needed to. So what you're looking at is each of these green lines is a screen. So this is where I got into BP, and I said, hey, let's open that little pop-up, and now we provided the number, and that number happens to come from column C. Then I said, you know what, close that stuff on the left, And I finally said, this is where I want to swap into edit mode. So I want to take this whole section here, I'll highlight it, and I can come in here and add an if condition. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do with ifs and add additional groups. You can do ifs and ands and ors and elses and use columns and values. But there's a little trick in here, because we know SAP acts a little differently when you're doing automation. Sometimes when it's the first transaction, you have to do something. Sometimes when it's not the first transaction, it behaves slightly differently. So we've built these in. So I can say, if this is the first transaction, swap into edit mode. Otherwise, leave it alone, because again, that's the behavior of the T code. And as I scroll through here, you'll see additional screens with all the various data that we entered in. And for anybody who's done a BDC-like recording, this should look fairly familiar to you. You don't always have to go to this expert mode, but just know that the green line means a screen. Every screen has an OK code, and then there may or may not be data that gets either pushed up to SAP or pulled back. So that's expert mode. And again, we're just going to add the little if here to say, if we swap to edit, just do it on the first one. Hopefully you guys are sticking with me. Again, we're showing you a little bit on how the sausage is made, so to speak. And now what I can do is I need to save. So we'll go ahead and over here and save both. And now I can validate. Let me test this out. And I'm still connected to my S/4HANA system down here, you'll see on the bottom. And I'll go ahead and just do validate. And so now we'll go ahead and validate. And we'll get the messages here in B, because that's where I designated where it goes. Again, if I get success, it'll hop here. If I don't, it will complain. And then if I want to click run, it will go ahead and run all of these. So just an example of how to walk through that BPT code, choose a different role this time. We recorded it, we mapped it, we added some additional business rules, we added some logic to make sure that it swaps correctly into edit mode, and now we can run it. And again, if I publish it, it will then embed this, what we call script, this SAP interaction, inside my Excel file. I can hand it to someone to now load or update those credit ratings.